Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Franchise Tagged Podcast, kicking off divisional round weekend in the NFL. Getting through these wild card games, we're going to look back at our pick'ems as we normally do, a little bit of a shorter pick'ems, less games in the playoffs. It's typically how it goes.
Yeah, generally, yeah.
hmm And then we'll talk about the playoff matchups and a couple little news pieces, but not a lot. And then we'll go over some of the coach firings that we missed last week that happened after we recorded but before we posted, and then we'll give our pick'ems for the divisional round and do our players by number as we be doing. But yeah, I smoked the bracket. I got everything correct. I predicted 6 correct games, and I could not be happier about it.
Yep.
Elijah picked all the favorites and only got one wrong. So
yeah, it's not the most difficult thing to get corrected at this point, but picking against the Packers was just something that's inherently in my DNA at this point. So
picking against the Cowboys is something inherently in my DNA. So
I think our regional biases kind of went into that. I went 5-1. He was 6-0. And do you want to kick this off talking about the one you attended IRL?
Yeah, that was a fun game to watch. The biggest problem the Cowboys had was they couldn't get pressure quickly enough, which is odd for a team with Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence and like a pretty solid D-line. But the Packers O-line held up for long enough, and there were like 4 times where Romeo Doubs just found himself uncovered wide open on a dig 15 yards down the field for Jordan Love to hit him. He ran an additional 10. It happened like 3 or 4 times that game, and the Cowboys just had no discipline covering the middle for an extended period of time. And they switched over to running, like, I feel like it was a different defense than I've seen from them all year, and it did not work. So they just couldn't get anything going on offense really until towards the end of the game when the Packers kind of let up on the gas, and then they almost made it a game until they didn't. But it was definitely a fun one to watch in person. A lot of mad Cowboys fans at that stadium, and apparently there were a few fights, but I didn't see any of those. So
yeah, looking at the stats here, Aaron Jones had his 3 rushing touchdowns, and it really seems that the Packers just dominated from the start, and then they put in the backups, and then the Cowboys were like, yeah, now we go. And that wasn't they should have figured it out a little sooner than that. I'm shocked to see that the Cowboys had more time of possession, but it also isn't that shocking because I feel like at the end of the game, they were just having long drives and scoring on them, but they weren't like being quick about it. Like they were trying to make an actual comeback attempt. It was just like long to be able to generate anything.
That was their offensive problem, was they had no sense of urgency. Like during, the first half, you don't really need a sense of urgency because, there's still another half of football to be played. You don't need to be rushing down the field and scoring a touchdown every drive. But when you're down 3 scores, 4 scores, you kind of do need to do that. And they didn't. And then coming out of the break after halftime, they still had no sense of urgency. They just couldn't do anything. And all of their drives were like 12 plays and a punt. And if you've got a 12 play drive where you're punting, it's not efficient. You're not doing well. Every play was going for like 2-3 yards. It wasn't the gashing offense that they needed when they're down by that much.
Yeah. Now that was a Sunday game. Bouncing it back, we got the Chiefs Dolphins, which the Dolphins
can't play in cold weather.
Yeah, they could not operate. They can't play good teams, and they can't play in cold weather, and that really just showed up. And honestly, it does seem like playoff Patrick came, because I feel like only in the playoffs does Patrick Mahomes just scramble, like consistently scramble for first downs and like bounce off of people and try to like lay hits on people. And it's like he strictly does this whenever it's needed, and every time it's in the playoffs it's needed. And he did that against the Titans on their Super Bowl run. I feel like he's been doing it against the Bills because those games obviously just have playoff atmospheres. But yeah, they still had drops. Like Kelsey had a drop there. they still got the same problems they did, but when the Dolphins were just as deflated as they were kind of entering the game, they just lost to the Bills, and yeah, that kind of storm that brewed, and then the actual storm that brewed with the weather going on. What was it? What was it on game day? It was like -26 wind chill,
Yeah.
something crazy.
Yeah, it was -22 to -26 wind chill. I can't remember which it was, but one of those two. Andy Reid had icicles on his mustache by the end of the game.
That was so funny.
Dude, some of them boys out there with no sleeves, man. I'm just like, how the hell?
Tyreek, right? Didn't Tyreek pull up with no
I think
sleeves?
Pacheco had no sleeves either, and I was like,
Well,
dude,
that lines up for Pacheco.
yeah, it's fair, but like, dude, you're out there every play running the ball, and
Yeah.
what was it? Travis Kelce, I feel like he went back to the jacket every single play. Like he would run a play and then he'd go to the sideline and he'd be like, I'm cold, give me the jacket. And he'd put the jacket on.
Real.
But yeah, that was a game I felt very that I think that one was the one I was least confident in because I just didn't know which Dolphins team was going to show up. And
Yeah. The Dolphins defense didn't really do all that well, and the Chiefs defense did really well because the offense just kind of sputtered. They couldn't run the ball like they usually do, and they just kind of got away from it, and so that it was just game over, basically.
Yeah. And Tua didn't change the game.
Tua didn't step up like he would if he was trying to make an actual winning attempt, and they just couldn't in that weather.
That Tua versus Justin Herbert comp is always going to be just like a huge, the biggest what if is what if the Dolphins took Herbert at 5 instead of Tua.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if that would have really changed anything, but I feel like it definitely could have.
Yeah, I think Herbert, it's be the one chance Herbert gets Tyreek Hill because it's not like he's ever going to be in that division on the opposite side. So if Herbert was with that offense, they could probably do better. But also defenses have just started to not allow deep shots over them. They've learned that.
Yeah, just drop a guy back.
Yeah, Tyreek's the only one that really gets past them, or it's just blown coverage, stuff like that.
And L'Jarius Sneed was locking up Tyreek Hill the whole game.
For real.
Jamming him at the line.
That freaking Kendall was like, isn't that a flag? How is that allowed?
Within 5 yards, it's a battlefield, man. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, he just tackle him to the ground. She was like, what? And I was like, well, if they maybe tried to throw it that way and then he shoved him to the ground, yeah, obviously. But this is the 5 yard.
It's jamming too. It's not like taking him down. It's like shoving him back and shoving him to the ground, which you can do. But yeah, that was just like, I think Tyreek Hill himself like reposted that, and he was like, jam my ass all the way to Cancun.
Yeah.
That was a fun one though.
Yeah. The Texans-Browns game started off so exciting, and then halftime hit and the Browns were scoreless, and it was just pick six after pick six. Joe Flacco and the Browns' playoff hopes dwindling away. And CJ Stroud played so good. Just unbelievably, you're getting benched in your playoff debut because you're playing good. That's certainly I'd say a rarity if you're getting benched because your team is pummeling them that well.
Yeah, Davis Mills throwing passes.
Yeah. One thing I want to point out is the eerily similar playoff debuts of Jordan Love and the Texans. That was kind of creepy to see. Did you see those stat lines?
Yeah, it was 2 yards difference. It was 274 for Stroud and 272 for Love or whatever.
Yeah.
But
same completions, same attempts, same touchdowns passed, same passer rating, and it was just 2 yard difference.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Shout out the boys in their first season starting.
Yeah. And I think for the Texans, they obviously are going to have a tall task ahead of them with the Ravens coming up. But, the Browns are in that same division. The Browns have kept it close with the Ravens, and Texans just kind of pummeled them. So
Joe Flacco, the inside agent for the Ravens.
It's in any given Sunday. even next week, I think, with the Texans and the Ravens, because that could be interesting to see how that folds.
Yeah, I mean the Ravens dropped one of the Colts earlier this year. Like it's not.
But and that was with that wasn't even like, oh, Anthony Richardson's in there. I think that was one that he was either hurt the whole game or he got hurt during.
Yeah.
The Lions-Rams game was the most ass-puckering experience of the weekend for me.
I saw the Rams had it with 6 minutes left, which is what you said you didn't want to happen. And it was a 1 point game. And I was like, damn, okay, so are the Rams going to go down and get some points? I fully expected them to. And then there was the missed call on Puka Nacua, where he kind of got hit pretty early. And there have been...
I don't even think he got hit early.
He did, for sure.
There was
there was contact, and it was blatant.
He's holding his waist early. Like, that's the contact early.
But he turned.
It's not like he got hit or anything.
But he turned, which is like textbook, you throw the flag.
But the turning was Puka, because he's turning on the route. He's not turning on, like, his shoulders being dragged behind him.
From what I saw, I've seen way less get called for pass interference. So I've also seen way more get ignored.
Yes, but in that game, there was a whole lot being ignored. Yeah. Just that game in general, that reffing crew. So comparing it to like the refs of the entire league, and when we get to the playoffs and you kind of have like the better refs, then yeah. But I think like in the aspect of that game, like it looks a lot worse when people are posting it on Twitter and being like, oh, why isn't this called this? Well, because that play has been made on like every single catch of the game so far. Like everyone's doing that this week, this game specifically.
I mean, the fumble in the Bills Steelers game ultimately didn't end up mattering that they called it wrong, but Muth definitely fumbled it. Like he dropped it. It didn't touch his face mask when he was out of bounds. It didn't at all. And you can tell because the ball's trajectory didn't change. If it grazed his face mask, it would have bounced off it a little bit weird, and it didn't. So didn't touch him, wasn't out of bounds, was recovered in bounds, and they challenged it, and the refs doubled down and were like, it hit his face mask, which is so stupid because it didn't. But
it feels like every game had something that the refs just got wrong. And even outside of that play for the Lions-Rams game, they called the wrong team for a false start on an offsides. Like on the encroachment, guy jumps, he's crossed the what's that term? But he's in line with the ball. Yeah. He's in the neutral zone very clearly, and then the O-linemen react because this guy just jumped like a whole foot in front of their face, and then it's like, oh, false start on the offense. So
yeah, I saw that a few times in other games too, and I was just like, man. Yeah,
I'd say that's probably the simplest call. You look, oh, that guy moved first. Boom, that's done and dusted. But no, they still got that wrong.
I think the only game where I didn't see any like horrific calls was the two games between the 4 and 5 seeds, where like Texans Browns, it was just kind of a blowout, so there wasn't really any bad calls to make. And then the Bucks and Eagles was the same thing. It was just like not a close game, so you know.
I saw someone tweet out like for the Rams-Lions game, they tweeted out like, oh, it'd be nice to have a playoff game that isn't a blowout. And I was like, wrong game. Don't do that to me. Don't make me, tough this one out to the last seconds. And it happened. I had to. But yeah, basically every other game outside of the Rams-Lions was a complete blowout, one form or the other.
Yeah, they were all one-sided. I mean, Packers-Cowboys looked a lot closer than it was. And Dolphins-Chiefs, Dolphins scored 7 points?
Yeah. It wasn't like a great offensive showing, but it was also the weather they were battling too.
Yeah, but that touchdown was just so baffling to me. Like it was a Tua to Tyreek pass, but Tua underthrew Tyreek, and Tyreek had to just sit there and wait for it for like 5 seconds. He just waited for the ball to get there, and then ran back to it, and then caught it and made some people miss. And it was just like Tua did not show up for that game at all.
Carrying on. Yeah, you said a little bit about the Steelers Bills game. That was one I kind of like. Khalil Shakir made a great play, and Josh Allen made some great plays. So they're really like
52-yard run
striding.
was...
But I'm not really like sure where I stand on this next Bills Chiefs matchup. It's they're the Bills heated up
I saw
in
somebody
that weather.
I saw somebody say, what if it goes to overtime and the Bills get the ball first and they score a touchdown, and because of the rule change, the Chiefs then score a touchdown, get the 2-point conversion and win it because they had that chance. And I was just like, that'd be the most Bills like thing ever.
Yeah,
that's
that
the team that went to
Bills
4 straight Super Bowls and lost to all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
that's just them reliving those glory days. Oh man.
Yeah.
Did you have anything outside of that for the Bills Steelers game to really touch on?
No. It was just a really good showing from the Bills, and I saw Steelers fans.
Steelers.
And George Pickens was calling out the refs, and I was like, dude, if it was a close game, maybe. But I feel like there were more bad calls in favor of the Steelers, and they still blew it. Like, maybe I'm biased because I just want to see the Steelers fail, which I do. But I feel like I'm...
onto the absolute collapse that the Eagles pulled off. I mean, Baker Mayfield balled out. You can't say he didn't.
I don't know if you've seen the screenshots of him at on the Panthers.
And in the dirt.
Yeah. Playing
team.
D-line on the scout team, going to the playoff games from that. Yeah.
It was disgusting.
We
for real fumbled that.
We both predicted it last week. The Eagles genuinely collapsed and fell apart, and it's not like anything huge happened outside of Matt Patricia being named the play caller for the defense. So
that, and then just their offensive play caller the whole year, their OC, whoever
Brian
replaced
Johnson.
Steichen. Like, it was just could not get a real identity behind that offense outside of the tush push. And so
teams kind of started to figure out, like, not how to stop the tush push, but how to not make it effective. Yeah. And they're like, oh, well, actually, we can just not let them get to that situation. And that team, man, it's gonna be so crazy if next year, because they've got a lot of people heading to free agency. Yeah, and so if they
got a lot of money in Jalen Hurts now, so
if they're not competitive next year, it's gonna be just a crazy like fall from grace for them. And Jason Kelce reportedly told his teammates that he's gonna retire, which he's 36. I don't blame him.
Yeah, he looked like he was going to retire mid-game with how that game was going. He's sitting on the sidelines. He's just kind of... He's got that look about him that it gave that vibe that, like, oh, this is the end, kind of, with his facial expressions.
It's a shame he couldn't have had a better, like, last run, but... Yeah, I just... That Eagles collapse is crazy, because it's not like they had some huge change of, like, big injury or...
Yeah, you know, I mean, they had with the injury Jalen Hurts was dealing with, injury AJ Brown was, but it's like you weren't
weeks
missing
before that. Yeah, they weren't.
Yeah, it's just overall bad play calling.
Devontae Smith had himself a nice game, but
he did.
He had some really nice catches. So future's still bright there if they can get an offensive coordinator that calls good pass plays, but at the moment they don't have one of those. So.
And Ray Lewis was torching their defense and their mentality and all that.
Yeah, they couldn't tackle to save their damn lives. And then one last thing from the games, there's a lot of discourse around Kirby Joseph right now because he's now torn 2 ACLs of 2 tight ends by going low on them.
Yeah, in like the past month.
Yeah, it was TJ Hawkinson, and then it's Tyler Higbee, which he's a safety, and he's not like a big hitting safety, so he's got, like, gonna go
40
low.
Pounds less than these guys. Yeah,
I think that he's probably getting pretty unlucky with how he's just going low and happens to hit straight on the kneecap and just like almost hyperextend their knee for them, and it sucks, but
I mean, a similar play happened to Dallas Goedert in the Eagles game. He just got hit slightly above the knee. He didn't get hit
It was
like
from the
on the knee.
side
It was
too.
like, yeah, he like took most of the hit on like the thick of his like thigh basically instead of kneecap only, and
Yeah.
that's probably saving him a big part of the severity of that injury.
Mhm.
But yeah, seeing like Higby and that like happen, and it's Alex Anzalone, our linebacker, kind of like tweeted in defense of Kirby Joseph because yeah, the league is wanting them to tackle that way. They don't want them to go high, and
Yeah.
you're going against a guy way bigger than you, way heavier than you. You're not gonna take it to his midsection and bounce off of him and
Yeah.
you know
Exactly.
make the whole rest of the team rally for that tackle. You're gonna go low because his body's gonna hit the ground, and after that, he's gonna be roll this down and the play's over. But
Yeah.
it
I
is
just
just
wanted to.
unfortunate timing on that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it happened twice too.
Yeah.
But we've got two coach firings, the two biggest ones that happened right after we finished recording last week. It was like the day after, and we were just like, all right, well,
Missed that one. Missed that boat. Get to that next week.
yeah, and that's Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick both got fired. And Bill, we kind of saw it coming. I was kind of advocating for him to not get fired towards the end.
Yeah.
I was advocating for him to be let go earlier on, and then I kind of thought about it, and I was like, this defense doesn't have any like super studs on it, but they're still like top of the league in a lot of metrics. So he's doing something right, just not the player creation or player acquisition part of it.
Yeah. Creation. And, he's hopping in Madden.
Creative player. Yeah. And then Gerard Mayo becoming the new head coach. I'm ecstatic. Like that's best case scenario, because as cool as a reunion with Mike Vrabel would have been, the defensive system that Bill Belichick has implemented and that he used that gave us so much success was carried out and executed by Gerard Mayo for the past 4 years. And there was no defensive coordinator for a lot of the last 4 years. We just haven't had one.
Yeah.
But there's been defensive assistants and defensive play callers, and Gerard Mayo is one of them. And when he signed his contract, they said, hey, at the end of your contract, if Belichick is not extended as a head coach, you will be the head coach. So they've had this planned. Mm-hmm. And that gives me more confidence than a reunion with a former player turned coach that did pretty okay,
Yeah, I feel like on the topic that you were saying of they don't have DCs, they haven't had DCs the past few years. I wonder how much of that was like purposeful in a way of like, we don't want these people poached from us. Like, we're going to have these defensive assistants and we might lose defensive assistants, but if we name like our, top guy, the defensive coordinator, then our defense does good. The defensive coordinator is the one that's going to be getting all the credit. Meanwhile, when you have these like defensive assistants, it's and more
2 of them
murky.
Are Belichick's.
Yeah. It's more murky on like who is the who's going to be the benefactor, like who's the one actually making decisions. These are just the defensive assistants. It's probably Bill. Yeah. So kind of, I feel like maybe if they had this whole plan and they were like, oh, we'll make Gerard Mayo the DC, then they might have lost him.
Yeah.
Because that's just how the league goes. But now with this, they kind of executed that flawlessly, transitioning off of Bill.
Yeah. And if Gerard, and I've heard that he is searching far and wide for an offensive coordinator, he's not going back. He's not guaranteed to be going back to the old bush. Which, if so, man, that would be amazing. If the Patriots get somebody like Jaden Daniels and then get like the Ravens quarterback coach, T. Martin, if they grab him with Jaden Daniels and get like this super athletic quarterback with a quarterback's coach that's worked with Lamar for a couple of years, that'd be a pretty nice combo, and I'd be excited to watch that, because I feel like that's just like setting it up for success.
Setting a tone. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's completely different from anything we've had. Because like we had Cam Newton as our most athletic quarterback in recent years.
Yeah.
And he was phenomenal before he missed a couple games with COVID and then came back and was just awful.
Horrible. Yeah.
And if we can get somebody like Jaden Daniels or even like Drake May and put a big coordinator around him, that'd be nice. But yeah, and then Pete Carroll, man.
Yeah, that just was out of nowhere. That was shocking. And he's 72, 74. I understand, but it's still just like this guy who's really given his all to the organization, just being asked to like step down, basically.
Yeah, but essentially.
Yeah, I mean he accepted that. Is it confirmed that he is moving to the front office? Because I only ever saw the reports prior to that. Like, he could move to the front office. He could be offered this role. Not so much that it was a guarantee.
He's an executive now.
Okay.
Officially listed as an American football executive. He is an advisor and executive vice president, which sounds a little bit like a made-up title, but
yeah.
Shout out Pete Carroll. You can have the made-up title if it pays well enough. So.
He's at least getting respect from them instead of just like, all right, we're kicking you to the curb. We need someone younger with better, It's just respect to him and what he did for them.
I kind of get it. Because, like, I feel like that roster doesn't have a ton of holes. And for them to miss playoffs with a roster that doesn't have a ton of holes is kind of like, is it Pete's fault? Is it the coordinator's fault? Like, you've got to put blame on somebody because the roster creation isn't at fault. And I know Pete's had a big part in roster creation as the head coach. So, like, he's been influential in the front office already. So him just joining the front office is basically them saying, hey, your insight in creating this roster and getting this group of players together has been wonderful, and you've put together some of the best talent that we've seen. But you're just not doing enough with it for us to keep you as the coach, which sucks. But
yeah, but I also feel like he brings so much like energy. Like anything you see Pete Carroll in the locker room after a win, Pete Carroll at the draft, he's taking his shirt off to shake DK Metcalf's hand. Yeah, like he's definitely like, if he was a player, he'd be a locker room guy. He'd be like the glue guy that you always re-sign just because he's just that energy. And so by keeping him in the building, you're going to kind of not create, but like consistency with the culture they have in place. It's going to just continue because you still have the main guy. He's still around the building. He's still got all this energy that he's putting into his passion for football. So even with like, if they were to kick him out and then they hire, we're going to reset. We're going to get new offensive coordinator and new head coach and new defensive, and we're just going to clean slate it. You're starting over with your culture where now he's in the building. He gets to still keep that like glue, keep it all together while not really losing out on much. Plus he's getting older, so I'm sure the long days of coaching might be winding down for him as well with his new role.
Yeah. I think that was just about everything. Oh, Tony Dungy. Yeah. Shut the fuck up, man. This dude thought litter boxes were being placed in middle schools. I don't know if you saw that, but he thought litter boxes were being placed in middle schools for people who identify as cats.
Oh my!
That was a legitimate tweet that he had. It's been floating around a lot more lately because his most recent takes. But
yeah, the one I wanted to draw attention to was his take on Taylor Swift being like the reason people are unhappy with the NFL. And
I'm unhappy with the NFL because I haven't seen a properly reffed game the entire season. There's been 272 of them. Not one of them has been perfect.
Yes, and even if you like, one thing about the NFL, one thing about all of the commercials for the NFL, about all the partnerships around the NFL, everything about the league, betting is being shoved down everyone's throats. So when you have a betting ad, like every third ad in your commercial breaks for the NFL, like they have control over that. They don't have to accept, the people's money for the advertising spot. They can not try to make everything about the NFL about like, oh, did you hit the over-under? Did you predict the correct winner? Did you hit the spread, guys? Like, you don't need to do that. And so when you have all of these new people watching the NFL, and they're seeing these ads, and so then they're like, oh yeah, I'll bet money on this, I'll do that. And then you have the refereeing going as it is, so people are losing money to the decisions that are being made, which are wrong by the refs. Like, yeah, I would be pretty like disenfranchised as well. And it's not because they show Taylor Swift 5 times on one broadcast a week. Like,
Yeah, it was like the whole Taylor Swift being shown, it was a little annoying, like slightly annoying after like the third game, and they were like, hey, look who's in the stands. Look at after every play. But like
NBC did it the worst too. NBC was like, everyone else was like, oh look, we're gonna show them once, and like CBS and they're like, yeah, we'll show her at the start, and we'll show her when Travis Kelce gets a touchdown, and that'll be it. And NBC is like, oh my gosh, Travis Kelce just dropped the ball. Look at what her reaction is. Yeah, it's zoom in.
She's in the building.
Oh my god, like, is that Travis Kelce's mom next to her? Zoom in. It's just, yeah, like no, that's not why everyone hates how the NFL is going. That's not why everyone's talking crap about the NFL.
That's why I was slightly ticked off for like a month. But it wasn't stopping me from watching any games.
I was a little upset for the 30-second span that they showed her. Yeah. And then I got over it because they changed it back to football. And I was like, yeah, this is what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Not that ridiculous take. And definitely no litter boxes in middle schools, my guy.
Yeah, Tony.
And with that, I think we can safely transition
into players by number.
Yes. Finishing up our player picks here.
We're going the last edition of it, 91 through 0, because we never did number 0. So we're doing 91 and 99, and then also throwing 0 in there. So you get 10 players every episode. You know, we're just keeping it consistent as we do.
Yeah. Even though we were inconsistent at the start because we didn't start with 0, but ignore that part. Yeah.
Ignore everything except for what I'm telling you right now.
Yes.
Anywho, at 91, I've got 2 names. I've got Trey Hendrickson and Ed Oliver. After looking at Ed Oliver's PFF grade, I realized that it's not that great, but I am going to take Trey Hendrickson here. He's had a pretty good season and been a bright spot on that Bengals defense.
Yep, and if you tuned into our mock draft, which if you didn't tune into the mock draft now, I'd
be shocked if any of you watching this did not see the mock draft. I'll be 100%
honest. We definitely said that he was a bright spot, and I'm sticking with Trey Hendrickson as my pick as well.
On to 92, I got Chase Young as a shout out, and then Justin Matabike as my pick, D-line for the Ravens.
Yep, I saw Matabike, and I also saw BJ Hill, another Bengals player. But yeah, I'm going to be sticking with you once again with Matabike.
He's just been really, really good this season. He's been a difference maker on that really strong Ravens defense.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 93, we got Jonathan Allen and Calais Campbell were the only names I could really come up with. There were a few others that I saw that I was like, oh, that was a player in the mid 2010s. They're still playing? Oh, okay. And that's kind of where I was with Calais Campbell, but at least he's doing better this season than most of the other mid 2010s defensive linemen. So
Montez Sweat and DJ Jones were other names I had for this number.
I forgot Montez Sweat was number 93. I'm going to go ahead and change mine to Montez Sweat.
There you go. I was going to say it's between those three, kind of taking DJ Jones out of it, but I was going to stick with Montez Sweat because I got to see what he added to that Bears defense, and it was they changed. They got a lot better with him added.
He led 2 teams in sacks this year.
Yep.
That tells you enough. At 94, I got one name, Cam Jordan.
Interesting, because I've got Deron Payne and I've got Christian Wilkins.
I saw Christian Wilkins and I was like, wow, he's kind of obnoxious. And then Deron Payne.
Yeah, he is.
I was like, I looked at Deron Payne and I was like, Cam Jordan's better. So
yeah, I missed Cam Jordan. So there, we're even now. I showed you Montez, you showed me Cam. We can be even.
95 might be the best number on the D line. I'm going to be honest. Actually, it's between 95 and 97 for sure. But 95 is a super strong number because you got Quinnen Williams, you got Chris Jones, and you got Myles Garrett. And
And shout out Derek Brown,
Shout out,
over
sure.
100 tackles.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that was the
Congrats,
Panthers
bud.
guy.
Uh, I really want to take Quinnen Williams because he's just a phenomenal defensive tackle. And with the same thought, I also really want to take Chris Jones because he's a phenomenal defensive tackle. But when Myles Garrett's on the board, I can't pass him up.
Yeah, so see, this is the difficult one because you have the two great D tackles, and then you have an edge who we've kind of been saying like, okay, well, edges and tackles. Like tackles have it harder, edges have it easier out of the defensive people, like defensive line. But like, I mean, I'm real close on Chris Jones, but it's Myles Garrett. Like he's a highlight reel anytime you tune into the Bears game. Which, hey, he got neutralized in the playoffs. Yeah, he got I don't remember the tackle's name, but congrats
Jeremy
to that
Tunsil
tackle.
Locked him up.
Yeah, while he was healthy. Yeah,
but when I'm thinking about like roster creation, which is kind of what we're doing as well, like that's not what we're picking for, but we're making a team with the players that we're picking. It makes me really want to take a defensive tackle because I don't have I've got Justin Madubuike, and he's my only D tackle that I've taken so far, I think.
I would imagine he's probably mine as well, yeah.
So it's like, it's really tempting to take that, like probably number one D tackle, well, probably number two D tackle in the league, or number three with Quinnen or Chris Jones. But I can't say that they are better than Myles Garrett, so I won't be taking them because this is just the best players by each number. So,
but I mean, with that argument, I feel like we're looking at top three for kind of like Chris Jones is top 3 D tackle. Myles Garrett is top 3, but I don't know where you kind of plug. Like he could be plugged in anywhere from top 1 to top 5 because there's just that much edge talent in the league.
See, I put him at 1 because it pisses off Steelers fans. So that's why that's why I'm taking him, because I want Steelers fans to hear me say that Myles Garrett is the best player to wear number 95 with Quinnen Williams and Chris Jones as options, and that he is the best D end in the league, because they'll just get mad that TJ Watt wasn't mentioned, even though we picked him.
I won't. I'll go Chris Jones just so we're not having the same picks throughout all of the 90s, but that plus, I mean, we got the D tackle and the argument I just made about top 1 to 5 versus D tackles. It's kind of top 3, I feel like, is where Chris Jones' slide would stop. So yeah. I'm going to go there.
I think Chris Jones is 3.
And I'm not going to be mad that you're just trying to make people mad. I respect that.
I think, and I genuinely don't think there's a wrong answer here. You could say any of these 3 guys is the best player to wear number 95, and you're not wrong. And PFF, gives Myles Garrett some really crazy grades sometimes. But Quinnen Williams, I think, had a higher grade or just as high of a grade as Myles Garrett. Like he was up there as just a force, but
he is a force for real.
Now we move on to the slightly less impressive number 96. The only name I have is actually a teammate of Cam Jordan, and that's Carl Granderson.
Interesting.
That's why I asked if the player you had written down
reminded
you of me at all. Is Granderson.
Yeah. I have Danico Autry, and literally it's the only name on that list that really stood out to me that I could recognize immediately. And he's not bad, so he's going to be my pick because it's a mess at number 96.
I think Granderson's a little better than Autry, but Autry has the longevity so far. Like he's been solid for a long time, and Granderson's been solid as well recently. But on to 97, we've got a big list of names here.
Such a group of guys, yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and read out the names I have, and then I'm going to let you add any to it, but I think I covered them all.
I think you'll probably have them all, yeah.
Sexy Dexy, of course, Dexter Lawrence, and Grady Jarrett, Aiden Hutchinson, Cameron Hayward, Kenny Clark, Nick Bosa, and Joey Bosa.
That was everyone, yeah.
I'm going to go with the Defensive Player of the Year last year, Nick Bosa. Is that right? He did win that, right?
Honestly, I don't remember.
Oh, fuck.
I remember everyone said TJ Watt was snubbed. or maybe it was TJ Watt. I'm not recalling. Let's see what your Google says. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do my little elimination bracket here. So first, I'm dropping out Joey Bosa for injury reasons with his injuries the past 2 years. He's still great, but dropping him out of my consideration. Then I'm going to be dropping in order Connor Hayward, then Aiden Hutchinson, just because he has no one around him to kind of help him prove that he's as good as these other guys.
And he runs like Waluigi. That's why
that's not actually a knock. That's a plus.
No, it's not. That's why I eliminated him. That is the sole reason.
I just don't think it'd be fair to have him next to Nick Bosa's name as you kind of narrow down this list. But Nick Bosa is my final here. He was
Deep Boy, yes.
Gotcha.
And then next up at 98, got 3 names. One of the Javons. Shout out our YouTube shorts real quick. One of the Javons. Yeah, Javon Hargrave, Jeffrey Simmons, and then Max Crosby. And I'm gonna have quite the gauntlet of edge rushers to rotate in and out because I'm taking Max Crosby.
Yeah, Max Crosby's a menace. Actually, hold on. Lexi Duxie is D tackle, or is he?
Yes, he's also number 97, not number 98.
I know. I was thinking back to 97. I was backpedaling there because I was thinking about. I forgot he was a D tackle and how good he was there.
He's good, but he's not like
he's not Nick Bosa good. So, yeah, no.
Yeah. It's the same problem I had with.
Yeah, I'll take Max Crosby here as well because other names I had was Sheldon Rankins, shout out, and DJ Reader. But
big shout out Sheldon Rankins.
Max Crosby's the. All right, now we can just get this next one out of the way. I think.
Well, I have some shout outs. Come on. Okay. I got DeForest Buckner. Big shout out DeForest.
Nice.
Leonard Williams and Daniil Hunter, who I believe through like 7 or 8 weeks led the league in sacks. And then, Cliff. But
they were gimmies, but whatever.
And then Aaron Donald, of course, is
the pick here.
And that's
finally a good, solid D tackle here.
Defensive tackle. And then at number 0, or did you have any shout outs for number 99?
I did not know. It was one and done. I saw Aaron Donald. I was like, yeah, it's 99. I'm done with this pick. Moving on.
So number 0, we got DeAndre Swift, Roquan Smith, and Brian Burns. And I am going to be taking Roquan Smith here. Another big part of why the Ravens defense is so good.
Yeah, that's a pretty valid shout out. Valid pick, rather. I had a couple shout outs. I wanted to shout out Byron Young, one of 2 rookies named Byron Young. This one was 0. And I wanted to shout out a guy from 1934, Wee Willie Smith. That's what his name is on PFR. Wee Willie Smith, 1934, we're number 0. So those are my shout outs.
Wait, Wee Willie Smith was a basketball player? Brother, what? Hold on.
End of my list, it was between Brian Burns and Roquan, and I hit Roquan. So
Wee Willie Smith, I think, was 6'5", brother. He wasn't very wee. Where is this Wee Willie Smith? Oh, there he is.
It's only such a long list, yeah.
Oh no, he's 5'6". Different Wee Willie Smith, guys. Different Wee Willie Smith. There's 2 of them in professional sports.
Nice. Fantastic.
Oh shoot. We're still good. We're still going.
In case you missed it in your humor, I agreed with you on our pick here.
Okay, nice. So yeah, that rounds out players by number. That's it. That's everybody. We've gone through all 100 numbers that you are allowed to wear in the NFL. Yes.
I do want to shout out Greg Newsome III. I just saw his number. Shout him out.
Yeah, shout out Greg Newsome. Shout out DJ Moore. No particular reason. Just shout out.
Just shout him out. Yeah, he's not anywhere near this number, but shout him
out. Yeah, this has been a fun segment, and it's not quite over yet because next week we are going to probably be making our lineups and showing y'all our full teams using the players we have selected in players by number. So that'll be fun. Tune in for that.
Yeah, I'm so glad to see our D tackle room is be too deep. That'll be great.
Hey, if you think I won't make Trey Hendrickson slide inside, all right, bud. If you
Yeah,
think
we're
I
gonna be
won't
making
make,
positional moves. All
I'm
right,
just gonna make Frank Ragnow flip sides to D tackle. You know, he's probably pretty good. He'd probably do okay.
You know how I picked like 4 fullbacks? Yeah, 2 of them are tight ends now. Suck it.
Yeah, so when we put it in Madden, no, I'm kidding.
Who's gonna go 17-0? That's the new challenge.
No, so what I'll probably end up doing is deciding to run a 3-4, so I'll only have one D tackle on the field at a time, and then I'll be blitzing 5 every play. So,
like in the 2-play out.
yeah, so I'm gonna have D tackle, ends, outside linebackers, and all 5 of them are gonna be coming straight for the quarterback.
Yeah, we just need to make these rosters and play each other in Madden.
Yeah.
See how much.
We would need to duplicate some players, but
yeah, we need to duplicate a lot of players.
We would need to duplicate every single player, but
yeah.
Anywho, I think
with that, I think
leads us into. If you want to talk about,
right?
Wow, we are just talking over each other.
I started freeze framing, so I just tried to shut up, and every time I spoke, you were speaking. So you can carry us into the segment here.
Into the what?
Into the next segment here.
Oh, what is that next segment?
I would assume Pick'ems.
Oh, right. Pick'ems. All right. So we've
leaving
got another shorter. Wait, what?
I said leaving that in, huh?
No, that's my transition to Pick'ems. So we've got a much smaller Pick'ems than we did last week. As you see, 6 teams have been eliminated, and 2 have been added. So the Ravens are going to be taking on the Texans in Baltimore, and then the Bills are going to be taking on the Chiefs in Buffalo. There we go. And then on the NFC side, we've got the 49ers taking on the Packers, where there is some slight history there with the 49ers eliminating the Packers, and that's going to be in San Francisco. And then the Bucks heading to Detroit to take on the Lions, and I have just deleted the Lions from the sheet, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So starting off on the AFC, I love CJ Stroud. Big believer. He's great. Wonderful quarterback. He's so good. D'Amico Ryans, great head coach. He coaches a hell of a team. The Ravens are going to obliterate the Texans, though. So I don't think they're going to obliterate them, but I just don't think the Texans can hang with the Ravens. I think the Texans can hang with the Joe Flacco-led Browns, and I think that's pretty evident that they did indeed hang, but I'm going to go ahead and take the Ravens here.
I think I want to correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't the last time the Ravens have a first round bye, they lost in the divisional, and they had also rested people week 18, and there was like this whole thing because they had a huge break and they were away from football, and then they came back and they kind of like, shit the bed.
I'm not sure. I don't remember the last time the Ravens were the 1 seed, so
I feel like that's what happened, and that was.
I feel like Joe Flacco probably led them.
the start of the Lamar Jackson can't win in playoff kind of that narrative.
I think they're primed this season. I think their play calling is as good as it's ever been. Their defense is as good as it's ever been, and they've got solid receiver play while not having like a crazy one. They've just got a lot of really solid players that are talented, and Mark Andrews is coming back for the Ravens. So there is that.
I was playing devil's advocate for the Texans there to kind of play spoilers, but I'm gonna have to go Ravens because they're just such a complete team, and I think that Texans fans are going to be happy to lose to the Ravens in the divisional because where were you last season? Like this is such a turnaround. This is so much young talent. Like you got to just you're happy about it no matter what. Really,
the future is insanely bright for Texans fans, and I do just want to say, I could go 0 for 4 this week with picks. Like the way that
these
playoffs
are so
work,
close. Yeah.
Like any game any game ever is any given Sunday. Any team can win it, but especially playoffs. Here, it's just like there is no guarantee. There are no guarantees in the playoffs whatsoever. So, as much as I think the Ravens are just going to hand it to the Texans, CJ Stroud could get hot and they could hit their stride and they could take it to the Ravens. And who knows, maybe some injury happens for the Ravens and the Texans walk away with it. And it's just like any amount of things could happen. But on paper, I think the Ravens have it. And then onto the Bills and Chiefs.
This one's so hard.
I cannot bet against playoff Patrick Mahomes. I just can't do it.
Yes, and
So I'm
especially
taking
given
the Chiefs, but
his winning record against the Bills in the playoffs versus like, yeah, they lose in the regular season to them. They lost this regular season because of the whole, I mean, amazing play by Travis Kelce, brain dead by KT, lining up on that play. But when the Bills are hosting and it's in the playoffs, I feel like the animosity is just going to kind of turn the fire on for Patrick Mahomes. And statistically, you look at these teams, you compare these teams, and you're not thinking the Chiefs stand a chance because, yeah, the Chiefs have a slightly better defense, but both defenses are top 5 in terms of points allowed. And then you flip to the offense, and the Bills are such a, like, they're kind of boom or bust. They have some great games, they have some duds, but overall, they're a top 10 offense, and Chiefs are middle of the pack. And you want to think about, like, okay, well, turnover differential. You know, Josh Allen, he hooks them deep, and then it's picked off. That's the Josh Allen way. They, turnover-wise, are way better than the Chiefs. The Chiefs are tied for 15th out of 17. Yeah, and so with all of that considered, it's still playoff Patrick Mahomes. It's still rising to the occasion. This is like the new Brady and Manning because they just make each other play to a whole new level, and in the playoffs that's elevated even further. So it's really hard to go against Mahomes, and so I'm going to be sticking with the Chiefs despite it being the first away game Patrick Mahomes is going to have to play in his playoff career. This is going to be a tight one, I think.
yeah. My only issue with the Bills is that they lost to the Patriots this year, so I have no faith in them ever. But
nice.
I do genuinely just really believe in playoff Patrick Mahomes. I said it before the Dolphins game where, you know, the Dolphins may have looked better in the regular season, but it's playoff Mahomes, and there's not much you can do to prepare for or stop him once he's decided that he's gonna win. Mm-hmm. And I think Rashee Rice kind of really stepping up into that wide receiver 1 role has also helped a ton for the Chiefs, and they've kind of found their identity passing, where before it was like Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, it's a lethal, potent passing attack. And then they lost Tyreek Hill, and it was like, well, that's okay, we still have Travis Kelce. And hey, Juju's pretty good. And now they've got Rashee Rice kind of stepping up into that wide receiver 1 role where Travis Kelce was before. Even as tight end, he was the first target for Mahomes. So I think they just have a little bit of a leg up on the Bills. And like I said, they lost to the Patriots earlier this year. So
faith ruined.
Exactly. But moving on to the NFC side, we've got the 7 seed Packers going into San Francisco to take on the 1 seed 49ers. I think it is going to be a bloodbath, and the Packers are going to put up like maybe 10 points, and the 49ers are going to drop 50. Like, I think that Joe Barry's defensive genius is going to be shown on a giant stage.
Yeah.
Or lack thereof, you know, as far as genius goes. But yeah, I don't see any way the Packers beat the 49ers. But with that being said, as the family member of multiple Packers fans, I know a lot of Packers fans are just happy to have made the playoffs and thrilled to have beat a team in the playoffs. Because
especially the Cowboys.
Yeah, you're going into year 1 with a new quarterback after having Brett Favre for however many years and Aaron Rodgers for however many years, and just having success after success after success. And it looks like you're going to continue to have that success with Jordan Love. So the future is extremely bright. It's the same thing as the Texans, right?
Yeah.
Where the future's bright and you didn't expect to be here. So can you really
make the most of that?
Yeah.
Still, I'm gonna transition it into that statistics side just for one specific matchup. So Joe Barry goes ahead and allows 128.3 yards per game defensively, and the 49ers rushing
That's
average
rush yards, by the
is
way.
140. What was that?
I said that's rush yards, by the way.
Yes.
You just said yards defensively.
Yes, my bad. That's rush yards defensively, and then offensively, the Niners have rushed for 140 a game, which is the third best in the league. And I think that the Packers, I feel like they've kind of leaned on that run. They have a strong kind of run scheme that really has helped Jordan Love acclimate to that starting role. But with the Niners defensive run game as good as it, or defensive run defense. Scheme. That's how you say that.
Yeah.
With their run defense being as good as it is, they're not going to be able to rely on that as heavily, and they will be able to run the ball down the Packers' throats. And I also predict a bloodbath, probably not to that level, but it's going to be like 28-10, and it's because 28 points were scored in the first, and then the Niners just kind of like let off the gas, but the Packers score a touchdown in the last couple minutes to make it look a little better.
Yeah, I also think that the reason the Packers are so successful, I talked about it earlier when we were talking about how they beat the Cowboys, is they just had receivers that found busted coverages and got open. And it was Romeo Doubs a lot of the time on those dig routes. And I just think the 49ers discipline in defensive coverage is way better than the Cowboys. And their talent on defense is also a lot better than the Cowboys. So I just think there's a better overall defense where the Packers aren't going to be able to exploit it as much as they did. There was a touchdown to, I think it was Luke Musgrave, one of the tight ends, where he was just wide open. Like there was nobody within 20 yards of him. And Jordan Love just threw it down the field to him, walked into the end zone from like 30 yards out. Like there was nobody anywhere close. And it was just because of a busted coverage. And the 49ers just don't have that. They just don't have busted coverages. And it's, anything can happen any given Sunday, especially in the playoffs. But, this game's on a Saturday. Then the other game in the NFC is going to be the Lions and the Bucks, and that's in Detroit. That's a team that wasn't supposed to make the playoffs. They won the NFC South. Congrats, you made the wild card round. But I don't see any way the Bucks beat the Lions here. I'm going to be honest. They're okay. The Bucks are okay. They beat an Eagles team that just got beat by the Giants, and so congrats there, Bucks. But I think when they face a real, legitimate football team, they won't have as much success.
There's one strength to this Bucks team, and it is their run defense. And the last time, which was this season, I believe week 5, maybe 6, that the Lions played the Bucks, it was a 20-6 victory for the Lions. And the Lions' leading rusher was Craig Reynolds, the third stringer, because we were missing Gibbs going into it, and David Montgomery got hurt during it, and it was just a bad rushing game for us in general, but it's because we had no one to rush with. And in that game, Jared Goff threw for over 300 yards, so he kind of stepped up in that. I think that the Bucks hang in it, just because our defense has looked pretty rough in terms of just, we don't have the guys to run the man coverage we've been running. And now that we kind of have gotten some of those guys back there, we got CJGJ coming back, and he looked good. He had a pass breakup on Cooper Kupp in the end zone. I think they stand a better chance of putting it away, winning the game, the Lions do. But it's not going to be a blowout. It's going to be like Rams-Lions 2.0, and they're going to win by 1 or 2 points because they can't lean on the run as well as they could against the Rams. And the Bucs are kind of going to be stout. They got Vita Vea. They're not going to let anybody run through. But if we get Jameer on the outside, he's gashing them.
Yeah, the Bucs don't. I mean, I would say they don't have the speed at linebacker, but as we all know, Devin White is very fast. They don't have the speed combined with ability at linebacker to stop you if you're going outside. and their defense looked good against the Eagles. They were wrapping up and actually tackling, which was something the Eagles weren't doing.
Yeah.
But you can't base anything off that game because the Eagles have lost everything. Like they've lost their. It's like in Space Jam when the
yeah, it's literally
their
Jam.
powers were stolen. Like they have nothing anymore. I don't know why. We talked about it earlier. This collapse. There's no real reason for it, but
they went 3-6 down the stretch.
Yeah,
and to lose,
they lost just 6 of their last 7. I think was the stat.
Like,
so
yeah, I do want to say one other point with the Lions. Kind of pass defense. I'm not excited about going against Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. They are going to be if we for some reason man them up and don't give them safety help, we're torched. We're done. So I really hope we don't do that defensively. And I do have it being a close game, but I do have the Lions winning that.
I don't think the Bucs can make the NFC Championship game. That's my only concern. Like, one of the teams, Lions or Bucs, is making the NFC Championship. That's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't think it can be the Bucs. Like, I feel like I'm going to eat my words, and I'm going to go 0 for 4 in pick'ems this week, which would suck for you as well because we.
Yeah, I really hope you go up. You can at least go 1 and 3.
But I just don't see the Bucs being able to do it, and they surprised everyone except for me and you so far by beating the Eagles. But I don't know. This is going to be an interesting weekend of football for sure. There's no doubt about that. But I am definitely looking forward to it.
Me as well. And I think that will wrap up our episode here. So
yeah, I think that's just about it. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to put the brackets on the screen for the Pick'em segment because we didn't go like one at a time like we did last week, but I'll figure out a way to do it.
We'll make it work.
Yeah, we always do.
That's our mantra. Speaking of mantras and habits, everything devolves when we get to this point of the outro.
I mean, it doesn't have to.
You're right.
Oh, conquer again. Thanks, guys.
Deuces.